I'm Emily, a 35-year-old full-time homemaker. Just a few days ago, I welcomed into the world my twin siblings, John and Sarah. It was a 2-day journey from the first contractions to their arrival, and by the time they were in my arms, my exhaustion was replaced with overwhelming joy at their healthy cries. Originally, the plan was for us to head home with the babies, but a month prior to their birth, my mother underwent surgery and was still recovering. My parents were eagerly anticipating our return, with my mom insisting that despite her recovery, she wanted us to come home with the babies. However, we decided it was best to prioritize her health and support her from a distance, working together with my husband to navigate this new chapter. But instead of the anticipated joy of caring for our newborns, an unexpected challenge emerged. What follows is the story of the intense harassment I faced during that time. On the third morning after bringing my newborn twins home, the apartment's intercom blared unexpectedly. I wondered who could be visiting so early. Peering through the peephole, I saw my mother-in-law standing outside. I was surprised and puzzled by her sudden arrival, but I quickly unlocked the door, and she pushed it open with force. Her abrupt entry startled the babies awake. John was the first to stir, and then Sarah followed, both crying out in response to the commotion. Having already dealt with a restless night of soothing them, I was dismayed to see their brief peace disturbed. My mother-in-law had come over by taxi, and I felt unable to send her away. Instead, I made my way to the kitchen to prepare some tea and snacks for her. "Oh my, what a disaster," my mother-in-law exclaimed as she took in the apartment. "I can't believe my son is living in these conditions. Emily, you haven't been neglecting your chores just because you had a baby, have you?" She went around checking for dust, dragging her finger along the windowsills like an overly critical character in a TV drama. "I'm sorry, but they cried so much last night that I barely got any sleep. I'll tidy up once they settle down," I responded, trying to soothe the crying twins. My mother-in-law brushed my hand aside, scooped up the babies, and said, "I'll handle the twins." Sleepless nights are no excuse. If you want to be a good wife, get started on your housework right away. Despite my exhaustion, she insisted I begin the housework immediately. I tried explaining the situation, but my mother-in-law was solely focused on the twins and disregarded my fatigue. Reluctantly, I prepared some formula to hand to her, but she immediately chastised me. "Formula? Any mother would breastfeed. What kind of uncaring parent are you?" Her words struck a nerve, hitting on my deepest insecurity. Although I nearly burst into tears, I composed myself and followed her instructions, starting to clean the room. Though she claimed she would take care of the twins, her efforts were minimal. When their diapers needed changing, she seemed to avoid it and instead called me over for my chores to handle it. My progress with the housework was minimal, leaving me puzzled about her true intentions in visiting. Moreover, for the next 2 months, she made near-daily appearances, offering half-hearted care for the babies while continuing to criticize me. This period became nothing short of a struggle as she constantly complained about me. I longed to discuss things with my husband, but he was always exhausted from his demanding job, leaving me with no chance to connect. Enduring 2 months of snide remarks from my mother-in-law felt like an eternity, so when she announced she wouldn't be visiting anymore, I thought relief was finally in sight. However, her next demand caught me off guard. She extended her hand, expecting payment for 2 months' worth of transportation and childcare assistance. I couldn't believe it. Was she serious? I couldn't hold back my frustration. "What do you mean? I never asked for your help. Your presence here has been anything but helpful. Please, don't come back." With those words, I swiftly escorted her out and packed her belongings. Without hesitation, I took my twins to my childhood home. Guilt gnawed at me for burdening my own mother, but I knew I couldn't find peace if I remained in that environment. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law wasted no time in airing her grievances to my father-in-law and husband. She portrayed herself as the victim, claiming I had spoken to her harshly despite her efforts to help. When my husband returned home to find us gone, he was shocked. After hearing my side of the story, his face drained of color, and he stormed off to confront his parents. The following day, my father-in-law, who had only heard one side of the story from my mother-in-law, was visibly shaken when my husband recounted the events. "Oh dear, what have you done?" he asked, his usually calm demeanor replaced with a mask of fury directed at my mother-in-law. It was a rare display of anger from him, one that even my husband had never witnessed before. My husband was speechless, and my mother-in-law appeared flustered. "Why are you so angry? Isn't she the one at fault here?" I made an effort to lighten her childcare load, even covering travel expenses. "Why am I the one being scolded?" she argued. She maintained that she had acted with my well-being in mind and adamantly denied any wrongdoing. "You don't get it at all. Do you even know who your grandfather is?" My father-in-law interjected, his voice trembling with rage. He fixed his gaze on my mother-in-law, his eyes wide with intensity. "Who? You mean that stern-looking elder from the wedding? I remember you being quite deferential to him, but what's the significance?" she scoffed. "Are you seriously intimidated by him?" "No, he's the chairman of my company," my father-in-law clarified. My mother-in-law's response was an inadvertent "what?" It turns out my grandfather holds a significant position as the chairman of a major corporation. Our wedding had been quite the grand affair, with several CEOs of renowned companies in attendance. While my grandfather is known for his strict demeanor and reserved nature, especially in professional settings, he has always showered me with affection. Whenever we met, he would spoil me with lavish gifts or treat me to extravagant meals. Upon my marriage, I later learned from Grandma that my grandfather had been so overjoyed he shed tears, surprising everyone. Given how much Grandpa cares for me, he would never stay silent if he learned what my mother-in-law had done. Normally, just the thought of his reaction would be enough to make someone nervous, but my father-in-law had another reason to keep this from him. I was on the brink of a major career advancement to a managerial position. This promotion would come with a substantial salary increase, and I needed to focus on doing my best. But instead of considering my situation, he went and created this mess. What were you thinking? At the moment, my father-in-law seemed more concerned with his promotion than with me or my situation. My husband, aware of his father's priorities, was visibly disappointed that his own father appeared to care more about his career than about the twins and me. He said, "I've had enough. I'm deeply disappointed in my dad's self-centeredness and shocked at my mom for mistreating my wife. Please keep out of our lives." Upon hearing her son's rejection, my mother-in-law lunged at him with surprising intensity. "Don't be ridiculous. You're the family's heir. I won't let you walk away from your responsibilities here. I'm going to go talk to Emily and set her straight. She is our daughter-in-law, and she needs to manage the household properly." Upon hearing this, my father-in-law turned to his wife and said, "You aren't seriously thinking about barging into Emily's parents' house, are you? Don't be reckless. It will jeopardize my chances of a promotion. Stay out of it." Hearing his father's words, my husband quietly left his family home. He walked to my parents' house, recounted the events, and apologized for his family's behavior. His expression was one of sadness rather than anger. "I can't believe my parents would behave this way. I'm so sorry." In response to my husband's apology, my parents remained silent. Instead, they simply invited him to join us for dinner since he was there. "Why don't you stay the night, James? Our house is close to your apartment, so you can easily bring a change of clothes." Initially, my husband hesitated at my parents' generosity, but he longed for some quality time with the twins and decided to stay. It had been a while since we could unwind as a family. Watching my husband cuddle our crying twins was a heartwarming sight. When it was time to sleep, my husband and I lay with the twins nestled between us. I wished these peaceful moments could last forever, but I knew my mother-in-law wouldn't remain quiet for long. Deep down, I feared her unexpected arrival, though none of us anticipated just how soon she would reappear. The following day, while my parents were at work, the doorbell at their house rang persistently. I had a sinking feeling about it. Checking the intercom, I was alarmed to see my mother-in-law standing outside, unannounced. "Open up. I know you're in there. Give me back my grandchildren." She continued to bang on the door, repeating her demands. My mother-in-law kept pressing the intercom and pounding on the door, causing the twins to cry so much I felt like I was on the verge of losing it. Then, someone else opened the front door. "Finally, you opened the door. Now, hand over the twins. Wait, who are you?" To her surprise, it wasn't me who answered the door but my grandfather. "How dare you bang on someone's door like that? That's incredibly rude." Whether or not my grandfather was actually upset, he spoke to my mother-in-law with a stern and commanding tone. My mother-in-law looked utterly taken aback, unable to respond to his authoritative presence. "Hold on a second. Are you the chairman my husband has talked about?" My mother-in-law's voice trembled as she asked my grandfather. "Ah, now I recall. Are you James' mother-in-law? I didn't recognize you since you didn't introduce yourself at the wedding. My mother-in-law had been completely opposed to our marriage. She felt as though she was losing her son, whom she had raised with care, and refused to attend the wedding initially. Though those around her convinced her to go, she didn't greet my relatives and instead spent her time in the waiting room with a sullen expression. It's understandable that my grandfather didn't recognize her. Once he realized she was my mother-in-law, his expression grew more formidable as he glared at her while she trembled. I had previously confided in my grandfather about everything I had endured. He likely anticipated my mother-in-law showing up uninvited, which explained why he had been staying with us for a while. In truth, he wanted to spend time with his great-grandchildren, but he hadn't anticipated her arriving so soon. I didn't mean to bother you, Emily. I just wanted to see the twins since you brought them here without telling me. Isn't it unfair not to let me know? She insisted that her visit was simply to see the twins, not to trouble me. Still, given her earlier aggressive actions, banging on the door and pressing the intercom while shouting for her grandchildren, it was hard to believe her claims. Is that so? But didn't you demand that your granddaughter return my grandchildren earlier? Since when did they become your possessions? My mother-in-law couldn't let those words slide and argued back. What are you saying? Those children are part of our family, especially John, who is the heir. They are rightfully our grandchildren, not yours. Indeed, her affection for the twins stemmed from their status as heirs. While she loved Sarah as well, John, as the heir, held a special place in her heart. I understand your fondness for the twins, but is it fair to disregard their mother, who is exhausted after giving birth? Forcing your way into her home is quite uncalled for, isn't it? My mother-in-law was caught off guard by those words and visibly paled once again. Wait, you're not going to tell my husband about this, are you? He specifically told me not to come near. I can't let him find out. Despite my father-in-law's strong advice against coming near, my mother-in-law chose to ignore him and came anyway. If her husband discovered her actions, divorce could be on the table. Although she pleaded with my grandfather to keep her visit a secret, there was no way he would agree. He replied to the anxious mother-in-law, "What are you saying? There's no reason to hide the truth, especially if there's guilt involved. I'll inform your husband of your visit. In the future, make sure to schedule an appointment before you come." With those words, my grandfather closed the front door. Typically, my mother-in-law would have continued knocking and pressing the intercom. But with my grandfather, the chairman present, she seemed to take a quieter exit this time. Though she kept silent about her unannounced visit to my family's home, my grandfather later called her husband to his office to explain the situation. Despite being explicitly instructed not to go to our home, my father-in-law was clearly furious that his wife had defied him and done it anyway. I deeply apologize for my wife's thoughtless actions. I assure you, I'll ensure she never repeats such behavior. He sincerely apologized to my grandfather. My father-in-law's apology was earnest, but my grandfather wasn't oblivious to his underlying intentions. Indeed, your wife's actions were unacceptable, but don't you bear some responsibility as well? It appears you prioritize short-term matters and overlook those around you. There's considerable discontent about your leadership in the workplace. Promoting someone with such shortcomings is out of the question. In the end, my father-in-law's promotion was rescinded. Blaming his wife for the missed opportunity, he went home, delivered a harsh lecture, and slammed finalized divorce papers onto the table before packing his bags and leaving. Until then, my mother-in-law had relied solely on my father-in-law's income, so his departure meant she faced an uncertain financial future. She attempted to persuade him to stay, but it was too late. The damage was done, and their relationship was beyond repair. All of this transpired because of that woman. She should never have married my dear James. I can't forgive her. I'll never forgive her. Having lost everything, my mother-in-law flew into a rage and stormed over to my parents' home. She pounded on the door and screamed at the top of her lungs, "I've lost everything because of you. If only you weren't here. Give me back my grandchildren. Give me back James." It was well past 9 p.m. when she began banging on the door and shouting. This kind of behavior at that hour was completely unreasonable, and my husband finally decided to call the police. My mother-in-law was escorted away to the police station in a squad car. Despite everything, my husband apologized profusely to my parents and grandfather for the disturbance, though they all knew he wasn't to blame. The sense of relief that washed over me as peace finally returned to our home was uplifting. Hopefully, this marks the end of any further disruptions, and we can now enjoy a quiet, peaceful life. While it was unfortunate that things had reached this point, I felt a sense of relief knowing we could now concentrate on raising our children without any more disruptions. Following the incident, my in-laws finalized their divorce, and my mother-in-law moved back in with her parents. Her parents' home was situated in a secluded rural area, much like Nebraska, with only a handful of buses running daily. Without a driver's license, it would be challenging for my mother-in-law to visit us. My mother-in-law, who had once been so determined to have the grandchildren to herself, struggled to adjust to life without seeing them. She repeatedly pleaded with my husband for the chance to see the children and reconcile with me, but he couldn't forgive her self-centered behavior and blocked her calls. Cut off from both her son and her grandchildren, my mother-in-law became distant and disheartened. It seems her own parents did not offer her much sympathy. Having lost everything, my mother-in-law secluded herself in her room, shedding tears of regret daily.